Salt of the Earth Farm Stories is proudly brought to you by Grig Media. From generations-old family farms to innovative sustainable practices, each episode offers a glimpse into the resilience, passion and dedication of Australian farmers and explores the profound connection between people and the land.
Welcome back to part 2 with Mason Crane. If you missed last week, we got into Mason's work with ecology, his passion for sustainable farming, and how a healthy environment can boost farm productivity. But today, we're diving even deeper. We talk about Mason's Fat Lamb enterprise, where he's selling direct to the local butcher. We also explore why having a farm plan is crucial, and how fencing off an area can look like a giant haystack and be a great backup in dry times. Plus, we learn about managing conservation on private land and Mason's role with the Biodiversity Conservation Trust. Oh, and if you're curious about making tea from weeds, well, Mason's got that covered too. And of course, I hit him up with a few off-the-wall questions. So here is part 2 with Mason Crane, and we start by hearing about the fat lambs. And tell me about your fat lambs. How many are running and what's your cycle? Do you have them on for 6 weeks or?
Oh yeah, so we run Dorpers here. You know, when we bought this place, there's no infrastructure on it. I think there was one internal fence.
Oh, really?
that was it. So there's no shed, so really doing any of the breeds you had to shear was not an option. We run Dorpers. They actually do well on native and exotic sort of mixed pasture. You know, whether it be Patterson's Curse or whatever, they still eat it and they do pretty well on it. So we run those. We run anywhere between 250 and 350 ewes.
Right.
And primarily, especially over the last 2 or 3 years, we sell straight to the Gundagai butcher here, yep. Smarts Butchery, and he supplies the IGA in Gundagai and also in Adlong,
yep.
And also whatever he sells in his own shop. So
that's good. It's kept local.
Yeah, it's good. Well, it's, you know, we really like that. It is a lot more work because you're selling 10 every Sunday you're taking in,
right.
Or every second Sunday you're taking a load in to him. But you do get a good feeling that, you know, what we're producing here is feeding, you know, the local community.
Mm. And the Dorpers are quite a tough animal, aren't they? Like from their diet point of view are they a bit tough on fences and that too?
Oh, yeah. They're good fence inspectors.
Yeah. I did hear that once that somebody did say, if you can throw a bucket of water through a fence, a Dorper will get through it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, they're pretty good. And once they know they can do something, like I think they're pretty smart sheep. Once they know they can go under a fence, and they're testing all the fences. So as soon as you have a bad fence and you're running a flock of Dorpers in that, you're wrecking them because they learn that they can push under fences. Mm. So yeah, you got to be on that. But
so you're on around 500 acres here.
Yeah.
And your first goal was to get some smaller paddocks, was that right?
Yeah, the main thing was we had to get smaller paddocks so we could give paddocks a break.
Yeah.
The other thing was to sort of, I guess, fence out the waterways so they could be a separate paddock so they could be managed more sensitively, and then was to get more trees in the landscape, whether it be the tree lines that we've done or whether it be the whole of paddock restoration. So we did a little plan as soon as we bought this place, which we were very lucky to buy, actually. But we had a field day out here probably about 6 months ago.
August last year, I remember it, yeah.
And we thought we'd find all the information to talk to people about it, and found this little sketch that we had back from when we first bought it. And actually we stuck to it all that time. So it's not far from what we originally planned.
Well, just some of the fencing that we're looking at now, where you fenced off a creek area, there's a big contrast to next door, isn't there? Like it's a lot softer. There's trees growing and you're still able to crash graze it from time to time.
Yeah, well, actually, you look at it there now and it's sort of really, it's like a big haystack. I guess it's if we do get into trouble, we can put the stock in there.
Yeah.
But for the last couple of years, we haven't needed to. I think we put my son bought a couple of steers and heifers at a sale, and we put them in there just for a little bit so you can make some pocket money, and you wouldn't even know they've been in there now. It's really incredible what's happening down in them wet areas there. Like the amount of sediment that having a bit of vegetation along the creeks is catching. Like it'd be like in some places nearly a metre deep. The change down there.
Really? Already?
Yeah, like we have a big range at the back of us, so we can get big gully rushes down there, and even you find like rocks that big come from the hills probably a couple of k's back when you get the big gully rushes.
Yeah.
So you're starting to get that natural chain of ponds there.
And you're stopping erosion too.
Yeah, and it's stopping all that sediment getting into the Muttama Creek and into the Murrumbidgee.
So the water's leaving a lot cleaner.
Yeah, and it's a lot cleaner in there. And it seems to be more permanent. Like there's 2 places where we've done that along this creek, and even though we've had very dry years, hasn't gone totally dry like it was in the first few years that we owned it. Whether that's just the rainfall or whether it's what we've done, but I do have a feeling that we're just holding it back a bit longer.
Yeah. So how do you balance the needs of the land for an environmental point of view with the demands of running a business?
Well, I guess the difficulty is if there's, like you want to put the environment first and look after that as best you can, but sometimes you'll get stuck where you haven't planned it quite right and all of a sudden you're lambing in a paddock that you wanted to sort of give a break to, but because you're in the middle of lambing, you can't really move them without causing issues with mismothering and that sort of stuff. So sometimes you get caught out and you're grazing a paddock heavier than you wanted to. There's often other demands that come up, like, all of a sudden the water system's not working, or the fence is knocked out with a flood, or trees are over the fence, or they're getting into the neighbours, and then you might not be moving the stock around as much as you wanted to. In some of these paddocks here, we've got water issues which I haven't still sorted out, so some of them paddocks are not getting used the way I want them to, but it's sort of just a matter of time to get it set up. And I guess we're lucky that both me and Miriam do work full-time, or almost full-time, so we're not reliant on the income. The main thing that we make sure is that the farm is paying for itself. That's our main goal.
I was going to ask, because you're a self-starter from a farm point of view, like you haven't had it given to you, it hasn't been handed down, and that's a massive task on its own. So you do have to take on off-farm work, don't you?
Yeah, and I think even people that do get farms, they inherit farms or whatever, a lot of them guys still work as well. So yeah, I think it is a difficult thing if you've got debt, if you have to buy the property yourself and that sort of thing, you're really behind the 8 ball. You're hoping that the farm will pay itself off.
Yeah. But
there's no room there for a wage for yourself.
No.
Or for someone else.
Yeah. So today, Mason, you're working with the Biodiversity Conservation Trust, and what's your role there, and what keeps you motivated and excited about your work?
Yeah, so with the Biodiversity Conservation Trust, it's a fairly new organisation, so it's probably only been going 5 years or so. Its primary goal is to help landowners manage conservation on private land and set up in perpetuity on title agreements on their place. There's a move to making sure that them sort of agreements come with funding. So the next landowner is also going to have some income to help manage them conservation areas, because we realise they still need to be managed, whether it's managing the fences or the weeds or fire or whatever. Managing things for conservation isn't just about locking it up and leaving it. I'm an ecologist with them, so one of the jobs that I do is help do assessments so we can make sure we fund, I guess, the best value for money, because there's public funding that goes into setting up these agreements. So we look for the best value for money, but also part of my job is to monitor the biodiversity over time to make sure these agreements are still maintaining their good biodiversity value, or it's hopefully increasing.
There's a lot of landholders that I've spoke to so far. They're really happy with this lockup and this agreement, and the benefits come back to them too, don't they, having biodiversity on their farms? Yeah,
I guess so. That the type of agreements that we're talking about are often over 20 or 50 hectares, so they're often big areas. So for some landowners, the value, I guess you might have broader landscape value, But unlike a shelter belt or fencing off a farm dam or that sort of in-farm sort of conservation project, it probably has some impact, but it doesn't probably have as direct impact on the running of the farm.
Yeah.
So, because they're much bigger areas and often the stock don't go up into them or anything, so it's only along that edge or that broader ecosystem function that is probably benefiting their production, but it's not as direct as a shelter belt or a farm dam or fencing your creek line, I guess.
Yeah.
So, there is people, I guess, out in these communities that see these areas, they think, it's a bit of they might see it as a negative, they can't do anything with it now, but the people that set them up want to see that nothing get changed in those areas. They want to be protected in perpetuity, because what we're seeing across the landscape is areas that you think no one's ever going to try and farm that. You might just get a different landowner and they think, I reckon we can do something with this, even though all those before us have thought there's no value in it. They think they're going to have a crack, and often there is no value, or too late they've done the damage, they've done clearing, or they've tried to intensify the farming there, and a lot of our patches of bush are still under threat from land use change.
And I guess it's quite interesting, once you lock a paddock up, what can pop up out of the ground?
Oh yeah, there's so many things that are still there. The seed bank's still there. Like you can see this paddock here, we've just done a whole of paddock restoration there, fenced it off, and just so many convolvulus, it's a native bindweed. There's glycine, there's a heap of these little forbs that you probably won't see much in the rest of the paddocks because they get grazed a fair bit, just everywhere there. One of the other things that popped up everywhere was St John's wort, which is an issue. But often people think you lock up something for conservation and St John's wort becomes an issue because it's managed for conservation. What I think it is there's already St John's wort all through them hills. As soon as you take the grazing pressure off, it just reveals the St John's wort infestation you already got.
Yeah.
We're getting on top of it here.
Yeah.
But in some places it's pretty hard. Yeah, it's amazing what happens when you do manage stuff for conservation and what does start popping up.
Yeah. And I'm just looking on the table here, Mason. There's a weed that you're drying out on the table here. What's this about?
Especially Miriam, my wife. But we're both interested in looking at the use for a lot of the weeds that we have around here. So a lot of the weeds that we have, whether it be horehound or St John's wort or marshmallow, all that sort of stuff, was often introduced to Australia because it had some medicinal use or it had some food use, stinging nettles. So we're trying a lot of different things with the weeds here, so making teas out of it. So this is cat heads here. It's supposed to be good for circulation and different things. And
you're going to make a tea. So what happens here? You'll dry it out for a few weeks?
Yeah, we'll dry it. We've got a dehydrator in there. We'll dry that out and give that a go, see what that's like. We've got a blend of tea there that we make up with stinging nettles.
Yeah.
And the marshmallow, you dig up the roots, like they've got big fat roots. You just cut it up and put it in the dryer and then put in some nice tasting stuff like the lemon verbena out there and a few other things, a bit of green tea, that we buy a bit of green tea and mix in with it as well, and just make a tea to try and stop inflammation,
This could be a scoop here for me, mate.
There's so many. Only have to Google it.
Yeah.
And you start seeing all the different uses of the plants.
Yeah. All right, Mason, it's time for some off-the-wall questions.
Yep.
These are short answers. You can answer as many as you like. What does your favourite Saturday look like?
Favourite Saturday is having all the family home, I guess, and probably just kicking around the house or the farm, just doing things with no pressure that they have to be done. And whether it be, sometimes we like to go on a picnic somewhere if we can do that, or go fishing. Having all my brothers and sisters or my cousins' kids, I like having all the kids together, and they love it out here, which is one of the motivating thing to have this place is all the kids can come out and they can come on the gate and we go around and check things and they can run wild and experience the things that I experienced when I was a kid, running around farms and around the bush.
Family, I love it. What do people misunderstand about you most?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that sometimes people think I'm an organic farmer. They say, oh, I don't know why you keep doing organics. I said, well, I actually aren't. I don't.
Yeah.
They just have preconceptions.
Yeah.
Or they might think because wombats are increasing everywhere, they say, why do you keep letting wombats go everywhere? I said, I don't let wombats go anywhere. They just increase.
Yeah.
So I guess in the community, everyone knows I'm involved in environmental stuff, but no one actually knows what my job is or anything like that. So if there's a magpie caught in the church or a snake in the hospital or a possum in someone's heater or in their roof, I get a phone call and I have trouble saying no. So I'm always going out and doing things that I think, why am I doing this? But anyway.
Yeah. But you're not organic here?
No, we'd probably like to minimise chemical use, but I think we've got a couple of weeds like St John's wort, which is very hard to manage if you're not using chemical. Blue thistle, especially in those rockier areas, that's that Iliarian thistle or Jugeong thistle.
Oh, yeah.
We don't want it to go too wild here. Bathurst spur, mainly because we don't want it to impact on our neighbours as well. But also we know if we don't keep on top of them, they'll take over the place. We use drench for sheep, so it'd be good to get away from that. But because we run reasonably large mob sizes on smaller paddocks, there's likelihood they're going to pick up worm loads. But so we just do that. Yeah, but otherwise we try not to use too much. You only have to look at my lawn to see that.
Good.
That's why we're eating the cat's heads or drinking cat's head tea instead of poison.
Now, Mason, what was your biggest failure and what did you learn from that experience?
Well, I think, I don't know, on the farm, we spent a lot of time planting. We sort of tried to plant paddock trees in one paddock that we didn't rip. We just spot sprayed and planted individual trees. And I think that took a lot of time to do, and the success rate wasn't great. Like, I think if you're going to do a job, do it, I guess, properly, even though it might seem a bit intense doing ripping and that sort of stuff. Yeah, I think try and do everything. Try not to cut corners.
Yeah.
Like even some of the fencing here, like when we first did the fencing, we bought the cheaper star pickets.
Yeah.
Just because,
You're on a budget.
not a budget. When we first started doing fencing here, we were using second-hand wire, second-hand everything, because we had no money to do anything. And, there's lots of second-hand wire out there, but it just took 3 times as long.
Yeah.
And then you end up having issues with some of it. Like second-hand steel posts are actually better than the new cheap ones. But so I think trying to do things properly from the start, but sometimes if you can't afford it, it's hard, so you probably can't do it.
Yeah.
But otherwise I'd do that right.
If you could be remembered for one thing, what would it be?
I think probably just being remembered as someone that cared about things in general. So whether it be your family or the community or heritage, like we've done a lot of stuff with the old jails and bridges and stuff in town, and care about the environment, someone that sort of cared about their sort of area and their people.
Nice. What's a funny story your family tells about you that you might like to share?
Well, I was reminded of one on the weekend. We went camping with my sister and her kids and a couple of my kids, and it's not a one particular story, but a general theme is if you go out with Mason, expect the unexpected and take food and water because you might not get back for a while.
Fair enough. And what has been your favourite job so far?
The favourite job's probably we're doing stuff on the farm. I don't consider that a job. That's my hobby.
Yeah, good.
I guess. So that's pretty good. But I think working with the ANU as a field officer and starting new projects and seeing new places and new wildlife and stuff like that is pretty good. It's sort of that sense of discovery, I guess. So that's always been great, and seeing things change over time and trying to collect data that helps explain things and often, I guess, sort of you're seeing these things and then you get data that actually backs that up is a great thing, or trying to answer a question that we don't know by setting up a study. I think that work with ANU was pretty good.
And if you could give your 18-year-old self some advice, what would it be?
Probably,
Is it get out of the pub a bit earlier, play a bit more sport?
well, it'd probably be look after your body a bit better, and you're not a 100-kilo front rower.
Yeah.
Learn to step. But yeah, I think we probably drank too much as kids,
Yeah.
and then I think that affects you. So it probably limited some of the things I could have done.
Yeah.
So I think that sort of stuff. But I think otherwise, any mistakes or stumbles that I had is all part of the learning process. So I think you need to make mistakes to learn, and you need to it's all part of growing up. And I think, unfortunately for some young people, the mistakes they make have long-lasting issues, or they might not make it through, but that's part of being young. But I guess the other thing too is making sure you spend time with the family and especially your elders, I guess, like your grandparents and stuff like that, and don't put work before that. Because I think I missed a fair few big family get-togethers and stuff like that because I thought I had to keep working.
Yeah.
And I think, you can always, someone else can take your place sometimes.
Is there one or two most influential people in your life, and how have they impacted you?
It's hard to say there's one or two. I think there's everyone from your family, and particularly your family. So whether it be your great-grandfather, when I was a kid, he showed me how to pot up plants and stuff like that.
Your great-grandfather?
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then we spent a lot of time with him. I was only little. Then my grandmother was into gardening, so she'd point out all the plant names and I'd learn all them. My mother was into she wasn't allowed to have her pets when she was little, so when she moved out, she had lots of pets, so I learned about, animals that way and bonded with animals and spent a lot of time with them. Going wood carting with Dad and doing work with him and sort of learnt the trees and learnt that work ethic. Yeah, I guess so. You get a little bit from all your family, and I was lucky to have uncles and aunties and that all around me growing up, but also the broader community, so from all the older people, which I always hung around a lot with. You learn different things from them. I got a lot from the broader family and from the broader community. I guess when I worked for ANU, I guess having Dave Lindemeyer around was important for me. I learned the value of science, and he gave me an opportunity to go into an area that I wouldn't have went into. I probably just would have went into management stuff, like national parks or land care or something like that, where this opened my eyes to research and the value of it, and that was pretty important.
Well, that brings me to my next question. Is there something in your career that you didn't expect?
Well, I guess early on I didn't expect to go into research. I just expected to go into land management, like with national parks, because you don't realise all these different jobs are out there, especially when you come from a small town till you go to university, and you see a lot of opportunities open up there. And I think early on I probably didn't expect there to be so much biodiversity in your local area in these sort of landscapes. See, I was always crazy on documentaries. That's all I'd watch as a kid, especially the all African ones back then mainly. And I used to love watching that. You'd see things like bilbies or such stuff like that on the TV or in books. And when I went and worked with ANU, trapping up in the pine forest up there, to see that there was antechinus, bush rats, and all these different things, half an hour from home, I thought, holy crap, there's like little animals around here. I just didn't expect it. Even ringtail possums. I didn't see a ringtail possum till I finished university.
Really?
Growing in Gundagai. Like we got brushtails, but it's fairly cleared landscape around home. And when I got back home, I thought I'd set up. There used to be like the great marsupial night stalk. The Perth Zoo used to run across Australia. I thought that's a good idea. We'll do some down on the common and start seeing ringtail possums and boorbooks and fruit bats and all sorts of different things down there.
So you would lead a small group out at night time?
Yeah, we did that for years. We actually did it, I think it was every 2 weeks for a couple of years, and all the little kids from the community would come out and tourists, and I trained a couple of young fellas up from high school. Like we did it under our bush care group banner, and these kids that were only oh, they would have been like 17 or 18. Used to go and do them, and they felt, they thought they were Steve Irwin talking about possums and that.
That education is awesome.
Yeah, I know. We don't do enough of it now. Like I used to do a lot more, but yeah, with the farm, like it's sort of taken a bit away from that. But I'm hoping to get things going a bit easier here, and then we can go back into our bush care sort of activities we used to do.
Love it. What time of the day do you get your best work done?
In the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, early in the morning.
If you could have a coffee or a cold beer with anyone, who would you choose? And they could be dead or alive.
Yeah, I don't know.
Great-grandfather?
Yeah, I'd like to have one with him now. Like I was only little when he died. And I think there's, historically it'd be good to talk to some of like there's a bloke called Yarry in Gundagai that saved all the people in the flood. We used to work around there, an Aboriginal fella. It'd be good to talk to someone from back then to see what they knew and that sort of thing. But I don't know, there's lots of different people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do enjoy having yarns to people.
And if you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Here, I think. Yeah, sort of. It's feel like you can't go anywhere.
Well, you're in a great part of the world. Mason, this wraps up this episode, and I do want to come back and talk to you about biodiversity on farms. But mate, thanks so much for this chat. I've learned a stack from you and loved it, so thank you.
No worries, thanks, Darren.
And I'd love it if you could follow us on Facebook. Search Salt of the Earth Farm Stories.
Salt of the Earth Farm Stories is proudly brought to you by Grig Media.